So this next topic is one that's near and dear to my heart. We noticed over the years that these events we do, FinJS and others, and finance and tech events in general, are heavily male-dominated, and so we've started to do some networking events ahead of FinJS and also some of these panels, both to give a warm welcome to women who attend this, but also to help drive the thought leadership around encouraging more women in the space. So we're really, really excited to have this panel here to share their thoughts with you on this topic. So we have Hannah Griller from RBC, Kathy Kadoch from Deloitte, Kim Prado, who you just heard from, and then Pansy Lee from Rose Rocket. So one of the things I really like to hear, and this is where we're going to start, is just a little bit about each of their personal journeys, and maybe a little bit about moments in their careers where they persevered. Why don't we start with Pansy, and we'll go off.
Sure. Hi, I'm Pansy. I'm the director of product at a startup called Rose Rocket. Quick TLDR on me. I've been in tech for 21 years. Worked at a couple of big companies, Microsoft and actually Deloitte and Intuit. And then last 8 years, went over to the startup world, RL Datix, Clearco, and now I'm at Rose Rocket. Did you want me to ask the...
Well, just maybe tell us a little bit, a point in your career where, you had some challenges and persevered.
Okay. I think the one that sticks out the most for me was I was interviewing for a job, and the recruiter came back and was like, Pansy, they loved you. They thought you would be perfect for the job, but they went with another candidate because the older white-haired men in the room will not take you seriously. Ooh. That was devastating for me, and I don't know. I think the recruiter was not supposed to tell me that, but I think she was so angry about it. But I think it helped me really look at the type of culture that I wanted to be at, and helped me to be a bit more picky about the companies that I wanted to work for. Yeah. And now, I look back at my career and I feel like I've had a lot of really great mentors and advocates because I was a lot more picky about where I went.
That's great. That's a really good one. Thank you. Kim?
Sure. Kim Prado. So I introduced myself before, so I'm not doing it. So anyway, I would say the most telling point in my career was when this one boss that I had at Bonus and comp time said to me, some men need big base salaries to pay their mortgages, when I asked him why I didn't get a base raise, right? Literally said that to me. And I said, okay, can you say that again? Why am I not getting a base increase? This wasn't that long ago. And he goes, some men need big base salaries to pay their mortgages, and got pissed. And so I was like, okay, I don't even know what to do with this. So I was like, well, all right, I guess I'm not getting a base increase. And I literally went upstairs to HR, and keep in mind, I was working for this gentleman for 4 months at the time, and went upstairs and said to the HR partner, listen, I'm not here on this isn't going to be recorded. I'm not making a formal complaint. I just want to make a point that there is somebody downstairs that may need some training. And he's like, what happened? So I told him what happened. I'm like, some men need big base salaries to pay their mortgages. And he looked at me, he goes, someone really said that. I go, would you like to meet him? So I bring him downstairs to meet the guy. I said, I'd like you to meet this gentleman. I'm not naming names. And I said, you just said that to me, can you guys catch up? So literally not 24 hours later, the gentleman was on a plane, literally was in training for 2 weeks, and then came back and said, I'd love for you to meet my daughters. True story.
Love it.
That's a great story.
Oh, it's
That's a
real.
great story.
It's up there.
That's great.
So mine's a little bit different. So mine's a little bit different than that. So I'm Kathy Kadoch. I'm a partner at Deloitte. I have been in banking, finance, and technology for 32 years. I've probably seen more things in my career than I would ever want to admit being recorded on this stage. But my turning point or my moment that mattered is actually in 1990 at a firm called Walwyn, Stodgel, Cochrane, Murray, then became Midland Walwyn, so I'm super old. They did not have an automated trading floor. No one did. And if you've seen movies, you know, the guys, the jackets, that's exactly what it was like. And there was this movement afoot where the IT team came out and said, so we really want to automate the trading floor. Does anyone want to work on it? And I actually worked in HR. And the guy that was doing it said, hey, do you want to do this? I'm like, sure. Said, do you know how to code? No. Because do you know anything about Unix? Nope. Not a clue. He goes, don't worry, we'll teach you. I was the only woman, actually that's not true, there was another woman on the team who was a Waterloo computer science grad. We were the only two women, and by the end of 1991, we automated the first trading floor. And it taught me everything I know about technology, and if you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see all the different things that I've done. So my moment was really somebody saying, why not you? You don't know anything? No problem, we're gonna teach you. Now, it wasn't always that good a story, because I've got lots of the negative stories too, but that's really my moment that matters.
That's great. Hannah?
And hello, my name is Hannah Griller, and I have been at RBC for a very long time. I just had my 25-year anniversary and got a lovely Dyson vacuum for the occasion. Pretty exciting, well worth it. I actually started, so I started in 1998. And I spent 20 years of my life on the trading floor. I marketed and traded, bought and sold fixed income, currency and commodity products with institutional clients, central banks, insurance companies, a whole bunch of different types like that. And through that, you can imagine that I became very well versed in various financial instruments, in addition to understanding what clients need to do. And I loved the AWS obsessive mentality. I love that. I'm going to start using it. And then after doing that for about 20 years, I had had a very close partnership with various people. It was Kim. She used to be at RBC. And through that partnership, she had developed some incredible technology, and it was always in close partnership with people, clients who were on the desk. And she said, you know what? Come and try technology. And it was this like, let's take a risk on you. You know, you've never done this before. And so it was very exciting for me. And again, to have somebody who supported you like that was very exciting for me. And I have continued in that role. And now I'm responsible for client digital experience within capital markets at RBC. And I guess that as I think about, you know, where I'm going to tell a story again. It's rather complimentary about Kim, but I have a lot of nice things to say to her about her. During COVID, I was working at home and I was doing the mothering thing with 5 kids while trying to manage what was a very aggressive workload. And there were a number of, in addition to the regular workload, there were a number of regulatory things that had come up. And it was properly nuts. And I think that this is one of these interesting things, and something that I'll highlight, you know, as a mom. My husband is great, but I do feel as though I shoulder a lot of the home care stuff. And it was nice to be able to come in, and you know, Kim at one point actually said to me, you know what, stop, pause, go focus on you for a bit, we'll deal with this. And I thought, wow, it's nice to have that kind of support. So I think that was probably one of my kind of nice stories, and there's nice support around and friendships and good stuff like that. There we go.
But we did name the trading ticket after you.
Yeah, that was also an exciting moment.
There we go.
It's branded the Griller ticket.
Nice.
That's cool.
And that was actually a pretty good Kim impression as well. Well done.
That was good.
So I'll ask each of you to answer this, and maybe start with Kathy. So as successful women leaders, how do you bring other women along for that journey? And maybe if you can share some do's and don'ts.
So it's a really good question, because I think there's probably women in the room, and maybe some men too, who might say women are not always the best advocate for other women in the workplace. And I see ladies shaking their heads. And I think one of the things that I've learned and have tried to mentor along the way is really be your authentic self. I talk a lot to my teams about what I know, but I talk just about as many things about what I don't know. And it's about sharing those open, clear, transparent capabilities that each person brings. And I think, no offense to the men in the room, I think it's easier for women to do that with women. And as we do it, I find that the men that work for me and my men clients also start doing it. I think authenticity is something that's really underrated, especially in the workforce. I think COVID forced us to be more transparent. We all saw each other's living rooms and kids and husbands and partners and wives and dogs and housekeepers, and God knows what was going on in the background. It really humanized us, and it humanized us as employees and as partners in firms and as partners with clients that we work with, and I think that's super important as a do. A don't. I got a lot of don'ts. Because I've been on the receiving end of a lot of don'ts over my career. I would say that the biggest don't is don't assume because what worked for you or didn't work for you isn't going to work for the person that you're coaching and mentoring. I'm a mom. I'm proud to say one of my kids is here today in this industry. I will also say that not everybody's a mom, and not everybody has to go to hockey practice. Not everybody needs to go to yoga at 5 o'clock in the morning. Just because you do it doesn't mean you just impose that on someone else or make those assumptions. Ask and bring that authenticity back into the workplace, because I think it really humanizes not only the teams that you're working with and have working for you, but the clients that you serve. And I'm very happy I have both my clients here. So I'm very lucky that, as being in this industry, really to bring what I actually represent back into the workplace and into the teams.
That's great. Kim, how about you?
Okay, so do's, definitely help the women around you, right? If you're in a meeting and you see somebody struggling, help them, right? Bring them along, right? Make the effort, put yourself out, like go out of your way to see how people are doing. And not just the women, the men too, obviously, but really make an effort. Like, I think a lot of times women don't speak up in meetings, even though they may know more than everybody else around the table, because they're afraid that they're going to say the wrong thing, or they're going to get looked at funny, or someone's going to laugh at them. It literally happens to me every day. Someone rolls their eyes at me. You shouldn't care about it. Just help the women around you actually bring their ideas and thoughts to the table. It's really, really important. And I would also say not just support them, but be authentic, right? But in a way that actually resonates with people. Like, if you think that someone just presented something in a meeting and you don't think they did a great job, it's okay to pull them aside and say, listen, let's talk about what just happened, right? Here's, my 2 cents. I know you may not want it, but I'm going to give it to you. And you'd be amazed at how well-received feedback is on the spot. Don't wait till the end of the year to tell somebody they suck, right? You want to tell them along the way so that they can fix it, right? That's a big one. I would say don'ts, right? Don't assume anything, right? And don't not include people when you're doing events. So guys out there, like if you're going out for drinks and there's, one of the female employees sitting there, they like alcohol too, right? Like invite them to go, and don't assume they have to go home and take care of the kids, because they may not have to. So it's just important.
That's great. Tansy?
I think similar to what Kim was saying, I think in terms of do's, making space for people who don't always have time, who may not advocate for themselves in speaking up in meetings. I found even when it was like on Zoom, if somebody unmuted and then put themselves back on mute, like I would notice it and I would just like call it out and make space for that person. Another thing that everyone in this room can do is if you have certain ideas that aren't being shared by that person, sometimes I'll share it, but like credit that person and then ask that person to elaborate. So that is like very helpful for people who might have trouble kind of finding space in those rooms. Don'ts, I have to think about that one. I don't know.
All right, we'll come back.
Yeah.
Hannah, how about you?
Oh, actually, you know what? Don't work for companies that don't value you. That is my, yeah.
That's a good one.
There's lots of companies who are doing way better in these areas, who are a lot more inclusive, and you don't have to endure it. So.
Okay.
I was going to say, just do be sure that if you're structuring things, like this is a lovely evening event, and then I might invite people to come to this lovely event, and the next week have something during the day. So do structure things that can accommodate multiple timetables, because I find that often there are evening after evening after evening after evening events, and I go, this is getting a bit hard for me. So I would encourage that as a big do, to be very inclusive to not just women, but to everybody. And then I know this is a bit of a double negative, but it kind of supports the point that you were saying, but don't be dishonest. And I guess that's be super honest. Tell people I have been brutally honest, radical candor the entire way through my life and career. And sometimes it has not served me well, but generally I find that it's better for people to know what's going on in your life. Because once they know, and once I say, you know, I am struggling with this and I need help, people go, oh, thanks for saying that. Okay, here, boom, 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 boom. Like, wow, thanks. Wonderful. So that's my do and don't.
That's great. Pansy, can you talk to us a little bit about unconscious bias? I know you've done some research in the area, and you have some fascinating stories to share around, women who code. And can you just tell us a little bit about that research and kind of how it's popping up in the workplace?
Yeah, so I did my graduate studies in design, and one of the problems that I wanted to really look at was like, how do we support male allies in being better advocates? Because for me, some of my biggest advocates were actually my male managers. So I really wanted to, find ways to support them more. And I did all this research around like unconscious bias, and there were two stories that kind of stuck out for me. One was they did this research project on how many times there was a pull request on code that was written by women where the gender was not revealed. It was downloaded more, it was used more, but as soon as the gender was revealed, the comments were like way more critical and just not used as much. And so, I mean, that study had a little bit of controversy on like how it was done, but I think this second story just helped highlight how much unconscious bias there was. So there's this Stanford neurobiologist. He transitioned from Barbara to Ben, I think in the 90s. Late 90s, so like early 2000s. And he was doing this conference talk, and someone came up afterwards and was like, oh, Ben, your stuff is so much better than your sister's, not realizing it was the same person. And what's fascinating is like the transgender experience is actually so, it's such a eye-opening experience because it holds, experience and education and all of these things constant, and really the only thing that changes is the person's gender. And there's lots of stories the other way where men who transition to women find out they have to like almost rebuild their credibility and how they get talked over and all sorts of things. So it's just really fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating and kind of like insane also.
Yeah.
Totally.
Does anyone else have any thoughts they want to share on unconscious bias before we move to the next?
Okay, I've got to tell you one. Okay, because I want to be sure people are aware of this.
Okay.
So I have a lot of friends who happen to be physicians, and one of them is kind of at the pinnacle of her field, and she was chatting with a group of other female doctors and one male doctor. And she was with these female doctors, she was saying to them, when I tell a patient what the follow-up procedure is going to be, I have to say, you will eat apples. And she said, I can't just say you will eat apples. I have to say, based on the fact that X, Y, Z, let me take you along this long journey that the medicine is showing this, and this is why at the end of this journey you will eat apples, and then the patient may eat apples. And the man that they were speaking to, the male physician, said, we all have the same experience. Just tell the guy to eat apples and cut down the amount of time that it takes for you to communicate. And all of these women physicians said, we can't. And this friend of mine said this story to me, and I went, oh, I have to do the same thing at work.
Yes.
So, please, as an unconscious bias, I just want to flag that one. If you're listening, if you're getting an instruction from one person, or if you're going back and questioning stories, just be aware that one, it drives me bonkers, because it takes me a long time sometimes for me to pause. I'll be in a meeting and I'll say, okay, let me take you through this entire journey. And then I can listen to colleagues who just go, please execute. And people respond very differently. So that's the one that I wanted to flag. I like to raise awareness about it, because I feel like when I'm aware, I didn't even know it existed until people pointed this out to me. I was kind of blown away. So I like to share the fact that happens so that people are aware of it too.
Can
Can I say one
go
thing?
for it.
We like this topic, Mozzie.
So I actually think we need to go back to the dating game. Like, there was the show on TV, it was called The Dating Game, right? And the people were behind the wall, and you didn't know if they were what they looked like and what they did for a living and everything else. But you would ask questions, and then the guy would end up with a date. But where I'm going with this, it was completely like you did not know, and someone got selected based off of how they answered the questions. And I think like life was simpler.
Yeah, life was simpler.
It was simpler.
Look, we're set up for the dating game now.
Mozzie, we're ready. Go behind the curtain.
We changed the format a little bit.
I think I might need HR here for that one.
There's a quick test that you can do is if you picture that person as The Rock, and if they said it as The Rock, would you believe it more versus Dwayne Johnson, The Rock? Yeah, like the actor, wrestler guy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. So just to close, Hannah, you talked a little bit about remote work. Can you guys talk a little bit about how that has changed maybe some of these dynamics, or maybe it hasn't changed the dynamics? Hannah, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I will start off by saying, so I spent 20 years on a trading floor selling products to clients, and I don't know if you'd find this in AWS, but I once got on a plane. I flew about 14 hours. I got off the plane, I went to somebody's office, I shook a client's hand, and then I had a little meeting, got back on the plane, flew 14 hours back to Toronto, and changed the relationship that I had with that client. So as much as remote work is incredible, I do find that there is an incredible value also associated with being in person. There are things that you don't otherwise hear. There are trust factors. And particularly if you're at the beginning stages of your career, I find that being in an office where you can learn is really important. So I do find that things have shifted. I don't know that it's from the perspective of being female or male. I mean, I do find that I guess I mentioned earlier, I find that my husband, again, he's great. This is recorded. You'll see this later. He's great, but I do find that my Dyson vacuum, I'm the one who's using it a lot at home.
Nothing like tying it together.
Yeah, I like to bring the whole story together. Yep. So, I could tell you that sometimes on Monday mornings I get into the office and I'm like, oh, thank you, God. I made it back in. So sometimes remote work works for some, and sometimes people love to be in the office. I think there is a happy medium, but I do encourage people to interact face-to-face because I find that it makes a difference, particularly at various stages of careers.
So I have a bit of a different spin on remote work. So being an IBMer and being a partner at Deloitte, there's nowhere in the world I haven't worked. You could put me on a train, on a plane, in a hotel, in a bathroom. It doesn't matter. Work got done. That's how I was trained. That's just being a consultant. But with that said, the pandemic did something super interesting that I got to observe as a mom who had my kids at home during the pandemic, with my colleagues and clients who had their kids at home, adult or young, while this was all going on and people were managing school and teachers and all kinds of things. What I noticed was most of my male colleagues, who I would say are significantly younger than I and had younger children, would often say to me on the phone in front of everybody, yeah, I have to go make dinner now. Like, I actually can't keep this call going. And my response was the same. That didn't seem to matter about 3 years ago when, I had to make dinner and like no one seemed to care. And the light bulb went on for a lot of the guys, and many of my male colleagues will say, I had no idea what it was like being a mom that was working at home or otherwise. And I think there's a bit of a different appreciation. Now, I can't speak for your husband because I don't know him, but
We heard he's good.
we heard he's good. But I do think that the opportunity, the one good, maybe positive thing that stupid COVID gave us was the opportunity to really share what working women, working moms do in a day that was maybe a little bit masked. And I think that with a return to work, whether it's 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, and while I agree that personal connection is really important, and it's what probably all of us on stage thrive to be and to do, that ability to see how to be productive and be valuable really had a light shine on it during COVID.
That's great. Kim?
I mean, I like the hybrid, right? I mean, Mondays are tough. I'll admit it. I like going to the gym in the morning and then not sitting in traffic for 4 hours. Now, I mean, listen, I think a hybrid is ideal for me personally. And like during COVID, I had the same thing. I have 2 kids, and there's no barriers at all. Like there was just no, I just couldn't control it, right? It was uncontrollable. And, do not disturb signs, lights outside, you're on the air. I mean, locks got picked. I mean, I could go on and on. I literally got my own Verizon Vios connection into my house. They figured out how to put Xbox into it. It didn't matter. So, when I had the opportunity to go into the office, I was like, Hannah, I'm all in. I'm going. And then I realized, wait a second, school opens, and I can actually stay home without them home. So I try to work at home as much as I can when nobody's there. And then when they are there, I go in. And I'm all for ordering takeout for dinner because I could never satisfy what everybody wants for dinner. But again, at the end of the day, it's keeping it real and encouraging your teams to keep it real, right? I always tell everybody that works for me, I never want you to miss anything in your life, whether it's for your family, your personal, whatever it is. And I think it's really important to have that balance.
That's great.
And deliver. But get a balance.
Nancy?
So I'm in a hybrid work environment, so Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays in the office, and Wednesday, Friday at home. I personally love it. I find it really energetic. And for me, it's like the serendipitous bump-ins that I get with other departments that I find the most useful. When I bump into a salesperson or I bump into somebody in marketing or support as a product person, just getting all of that feedback is really great. So I really like the hybrid.
That's great. Well, thank you all so much. This was really, really fantastic panel.
Thank you.